Master Surgeon Benjamin, that is your turn.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I was saying to John though, like.
Switzerland. They were airborne somewhere, probably with air plugs because of the, you could hear the Raptor. And here comes from the right the classic formation from Switzerland Airlines for a while. 2 Beech-18s, 1 Douglas DC-3. The sound of peace.
See this big aeroplane in the middle? This big aeroplane out these three.
Let me be a little bit personal, having flown both times in commercial service. Long time ago, and the DC-3 is a miracle in flight. It's probably nearly as important as in aviation legend. It's probably as important as the Spitfire. The DC-3 was conceived in California. By the way, look at the design. It looks like it's been designed in some studio by some specialists. You tell them, hey, we're in 1937, design an aircraft, an imaginary aircraft for commercial use, whose design is reminiscent of adventure, travel, and long distance, and you land up with a DC-3. 2 engines, 2 round engines, 2 radial engines from Pratt & Whitney, long wings, around a circular fuselage, housing up to 24 passengers in very reasonable comfort. The only thing compared to today is that, of course, it's not pressurized. With the DC-3, they invented a new type of job, stewardess. And this was the mid-30s, and the DC-3 was made to go from the Pacific coast, the west coast, to the east coast. And in the beginning, they were even, this was the first aircraft really able to fly at night commercially with normal standard of safety, to the point that the insurance companies in America in 1936-37 started saying yes to the request for insuring aerial passengers because of this aircraft. And so the first DC-3s were not called DC-3s but DSTs, for Douglas Sleeper Transport. Was the main liner. Some airlines in America call them the main liners because they were big, up to 24 passengers, and so they needed feeders to be able to go to what was not at the time already called hubs, but secondary airports, and whose business was to bring passengers in small numbers, 8 passengers up to 10 passengers, to bring them to the hubs in order to fill up the DC-3s. And this was the work devoted to the smaller Beech 18, which in fact is nothing but a smaller version of the DC-3 with round engines too, Pratt & Whitney's 985s, 500 horsepower per side. And 8 seats in the cabin, and together the same type of crews were used on the DC-3s and the Beech. 2 pilots sitting up from well as a DC-3 to fly on instruments alone, and this teaming of small feeder liners and main liners during the last years of the 1930s invented literally air transport like we do it today again. Of course, today we have passengers by the hundreds in our mainliners, but we still have this duality between the mainliner and the feeder liner. The thing is that at that time, the aircraft were designed without computers, and so they were really over-calculated in terms of strength. And for instance, the DC-3, which were built during the end of the 30s as civilian commercial aircraft, and then during the war by the thousands as military transports, these aircraft are so well designed that a few years ago, FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, after a lengthy study and after many tests, static tests of a very old DC-3 they had found somewhere with 90,000 hours of flight time, they tried to break it, and they finally decided that the DC-3 was so well engineered and built that with proper maintenance there is no time limit on the DC-3 airframe, so they could, technically speaking, intellectually speaking, they could last forever because they're so well built. Classic formations, aircraft are captained because there is one captain. You have a crew and not only one pilot on board. On the DC-3 is Mr. Breton Moser. On the first Beech 1 is Mr. Kisling, and the Beech 2 is Mr. Matisse. And Mr. Breton Moser in everyday life is an airline captain, is flying on Airbuses, big ones, with over 20,000 hours of flight time. And so these aircraft really changed the world, mostly the DC-3. After the war, when DC-3s were available by the thousands for reasonable money because they were surplus, all the world airlines went to America, went to New Mexico mostly, where they had stored rows and rows and rows of DC-3s, and airlines like British European Airways at the time, Alitalia, Air France, Lufthansa, and others went there, bought DC-3s and started operating again during the late 40s. And the world, as we know it today, with this network of aerial lines, the world as we know it today was architectured at that time using this type of aircraft. Of course, compared to today, the DC-3s were not pressurized, so they were flying low. And of course, flying was an adventure. And one very important item on board this aircraft was to be found in the small pocket on the seat in front of you, and it was a buff bag. Because down low the air is bumpy, and even if there was some cool